Good morning. I want to begin with just a little bit of clarification about the writing lab, since the vast majority of you will be watching this video rather than being in the classroom. In the before times, before COVID, before the pandemic, I used to uh, have a week where classes were called off and people would come to the office and we would sit down with a paper that we were working on, and there would be a conference between me and each and every student. There would be a sign up sheet, and I figured that because people had to spend 15 to 20 minutes alone with me in the office and hear me ramble, that we could take kind of that week off, or the rest of that week off. We can't do that, social distancing, all of that other stuff. So the writing labs are designed in part to take care of that conferences, or to replace the conference by having 3 or 4 people in the room, by having assignments up on the board, and by talking about what's good, what's great, what's bad, what's ugly about the assignments. I promise to be as kind as I possibly can as we go. Part of writing is revising and editing. And I think that the two terms get confused quite often. So today I'm going to talk about this concept called RADaR versus cups. I've just stumbled upon it 3 or 4 years ago, and I believe it is the best way to review, or to view the idea of revising, to view the idea of editing. And I think if one uses this tool, supplied by this acronym, that people's writing will improve. So, writing process, I think it has an ought to be and it has a real world. The ought to be has people planning, drafting, revising, and editing. I've made an assignment. I've given you a couple of weeks to work on it. We're going to go over parts and bits and pieces in class. There's plenty of time for people to plan, uh, as they go through this. Draft is to write it out, get it all on paper, have a first draft. And then revise is to make big picture changes. And then edit is to look at grammar and mechanics. However, I don't know if people do that very often. I think a lot of people, deadline's approaching, I have to write something, let's do a spell check, let's get it in the folder, or get it turned in, or whatever it is you're supposed to be doing. And I think RADaR versus cups, or RADaR and cups, are two ways to help you think about revising and editing, and hopefully get you to think about maybe drafting is a good idea, maybe planning a little bit is a good idea. I taught a business communication class several times, and in the most recent textbook, the business communication class set up the idea of, we're going to have 20% planning, 30% of the time drafting, 50% of the time editing. Okay? A lot of people, I think, are kind of like the chart that didn't quite get put on the slide properly. And also, I couldn't say random fecal matter, which is what's behind there. We spend a lot of our time on random fecal matter, and we don't spend enough time actually revising. And so I want to talk about the idea again of revising, but revising, I think, before we spend time on it, we need to understand exactly what that revising is. Revision, as I've said earlier, is a big picture. Editing is the grammatical and mechanical errors. And I think we have spent too much time viewing editing, or mistaking editing, for revision. Revision should be, how complete is it? How coherent is it? How unified is it? Do I have everything I need in this document and nothing more? I think if you go to the editing, it's, are these the little errors? Are these the things that are going to cause death by 1,000 paper cuts? And I think too often we spend way too much time on the editing and not enough time on the revising. The tool that I think works for me, the tool that was on the title slide, is RADaR and CUPS. Revise versus edit. You can see on the left-hand side that it's adapted from a book, and that I got part of the adaptation from the web. I'm not sure where I got the photo from the slide. I think it was sent to me. I think one of my former colleagues may have sent it to me. RADaR and CUPS are acronyms. RADaR stands for replace, add, delete, and reorder. CUPS stands for capitalization, usage, punctuation, and spelling. Replace vague or overused words. One of the easiest things in the world to do is to hit Control F and put in words like this or that, these, I. A lot of words get overused. And if you've got a 1,000-word paper and you've got these as 100 of those words, or 50 of those words, or 20 of those words, you probably overused the word these. Okay? Also, the idea of vague. It was great. Well, what exactly does great mean? Or words like really. All of those words could be overused. Very is another one. Think about words such as those and how do you get rid of them? I will talk about, at some point in the future, talk about the fact that concrete nouns and action verbs should be preferred over adjectives and adverbs. Unclear sentences or poorly worded sentences. One of the best tricks I think you can do is to start reading your paper from the last sentence backwards to the second to last sentence, backwards to the third to last sentence. In other words, sentence by sentence from the bottom to the top. I think a lot of times people will be able to catch sentences that just don't sound good, sentences that leave a, don't ring, don't leave a good feel in the ear, for lack of a better word. Okay. Also, I think the add here is important. A lot of times when people revise, I think they concern themselves with deleting. Can I get rid of all of this stuff? I think that that's important. But notice the first word is replace. The second word is add, necessary information. Transition phrasing, I think, is extremely important. Modifiers may be important, but again, don't have vague modifiers like very or really. Okay? Make sure that the modifier actually adds to the sentence. Delete, the repetition. I think of, perhaps there are times when that repetition is necessary, but frequently it isn't. Sentences that may be good but don't fit. I don't want to come off as a jerk here, but if you've got this sentence that you think is the most lovely sounding sentence that you have ever written, that this sentence should win you the Pulitzer, or if you're writing a detective novel, it should win you the Edgar Award. Fine. I'm very, very happy for you that you have written this perfect sentence. If it doesn't help prove your point, take it out. Print it, put it on your refrigerator at home, admire it every day. But if it doesn't help prove the point, take it out. And then finally, remember that the point should flow logically. They perhaps chronologically or spatially, from top to bottom, from left to right, from back to front. Find some logical order and stick to it. And if it doesn't fit that logical order, reorder it, move it around. This slide is I think, the heart of the RADaR. It's the heart of the presentation. It's something I think you should come back to as you go through and think about revision. And again, remember, revision is big picture, replacing, adding, deleting, and reordering. CUPS is capitalization, usage, punctuation, spelling, Remember that spell check is your friend. Spell check is also your greatest enemy. And especially with autocorrect and things like that, make sure you're double checking everything. Also, make sure if there's a red line on a Google Doc or a red line on the Microsoft Word, make sure that you double check that. Okay? And look, I know how hard it is. You're going to see slide presentations where I screw up, where I just miss stuff. And sometimes those are presentations where I have decided I'm going to trust spell check, and spell check doesn't help me. But think about capitalization, think about usage, words like there for possession, there for place, there for the contraction they are. Think about, the subject verb agreement, plural subject, plural verb. Think about, does it meet the definition? Does the word mean what you think it means? And also think about tense, punctuation, spelling. Double check all of that. For today's daily writing, in the comments below, what percentage of time do you use for each stage of the writing process? Give the percentage of time for planning. For example, do you spend 10% of your time planning, 50% of your time planning? Drafting, same thing. How much time? 20%, 30%, 80%? How much time revising? 5%, 50%? How much time editing? 10%, 60%? What is it? Break them all down. Write your response in the comments section. Hope all of you have a good weekend, and I'll send out an email reminding people, but I believe it should be Group B in class on Monday, and we'll kind of go from there. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.